Okay, hey guys. I think this is recording. I am Jessica Maxwell, and this is my project success tips for beginner educators. I took education psychology this semester and had the opportunity to conduct two field experiences in which I went into the education system and was able to observe and learn even more. So these are a few tips that incorporate my field experience, the knowledge I've learned from my class thus far, and yeah. So let's get started. So tip number one is be mindful of the age of the student slash client that you're teaching. In my case, I want to be a speech language pathologist, so it would be the client that I am administering services to. The first bullet is Piaget's theory because this tip is based off of the field experience I did at Central Elementary School by observing in a STEM teacher named Miss Turner. Um, so I thought Piaget's theory was perfect to tie in with this experience because she does teach a wide range of students since she sees K through fifth grade in the school. So the main thing about Piaget's theory of development is main thing about Piaget's theory is thinking and the process of thinking and memory development as kids develop over time. So you can see the picture I included, which is sensory motor stage, which is birth to 2 years. The pre-operational stage is 2 to 7, and concrete operational stage, which is 7 to 11. So for my purposes, the main focus was pre-operational and concrete operational. When observing Miss Turner, I noticed that she had a different activity planned for each age group, and this worked out really well because it played to the strengths and weaknesses of each stage of development. So her kindergartners were doing an activity different than her fifth graders because her older kids were able to follow a series of directions, whereas the younger kids weren't able to. Um, Another example I saw where this theory was shown was her kindergartners came in for class and she instructed them come in with quiet feet, and they started cracking up because they're like, oh, my feet can't talk. And they started pretending to talk to their feet as if it were a person. So this shows that sort of differentiation between their using their metacognition in that stage where they're starting to learn that, like, oh, this is make believe and this is reality, but they're incorporating both in one scenario. One thing I would be mindful of with this tip slash theory is that some kids may lag behind or even be ahead of the stage they're supposed to be at. So I would just use this as a guide to support the fact that you should be mindful of what age they are at and what stage they are and where they are roughly with their development in order to figure out what teaching method and strategies and activities are going to be best for this learner. Um, so, for example, like a kid with a learning disability that is age 2 to 7 may not have the skills down that are typically seen with their age group, or someone who is bilingual may be, if Spanish is that kid's first language, um, English being their second, they may not be at the stage or skill level that Piaget's sequence would suggest, if that makes sense. So tip number two was to encourage and praise good behavior in your classroom or whatever environment you're in. So in front of the other students, to model the desired behavior. So the main thing about this is I noticed when I was observing in a classroom environment that, kids will be kids and they will get off task and start talking and not do what they're supposed to do. That's expected. But I noticed that when the teacher would be like, oh, so and so, let's say Sally was sitting in her spot and staying on task, they would praise them in front of the whole class, like, oh, I love how Sally's sitting quietly. That's such a good job. And the other students wanted to be praised as well and have their teacher be proud of them. So then I would notice the kids sitting down and following directions. We actually learned about this semester in reading. Um, this would fall under the rewards. The rewards system. So giving rewards or consequences helps a kid to do what we want them to do. Operant conditioning is also another thing. I did include this picture not to liken the children to a dog, but it helps kind of explain the concept of like when you are training a dog, you tell them to sit or stay. If they do it, they get a treat. And if you do this over and over again, the dog learns, oh, if I follow this command, then I get a treat. So that's how you get them to continue the behavior. It's the same thing in the classroom where we want students to stay on task and work on what we're working on in class. Maybe they're talking too much, so we give them a consequence or a reward based on the behavior, and that sort of helps with classroom management. Tip number 3 was learn the individual students' learning strategies and implement this into therapy/lessons around the way they learn. I included therapy because I am going into the field of speech pathology. So for me, it would be a therapy session. For someone in a classroom, it would be lesson plans. I kind of base this around the theory of multiple intelligences, which Howard Gardner came up with. It's basically, you can see in this picture, it was based off of the belief back in the olden days that there was intelligence, you either had it or you didn't. This theory proves that all people can be intelligent, but there's just different types. So people have their strengths and their weaknesses. When in one of my field experiences, when I was observing an SLP, I just got to see this firsthand that some students learned better with this activity and this theory of teaching versus others who did it in a completely different way. So, for example, if I have a kid who is spatially intelligent, I'm going to base their therapy around sequencing and directions, maybe like how to make a sandwich, or oh, I have this barn. Does the farmer go in, on top of, or outside? So it's just playing to their strengths pretty much. And when you learn about what kind of way they learn, you can also, it's not just which their intelligence or which intelligence they fall under, what their strengths and weaknesses are mentally, but also it's a great way to learn about their cultural and ethnic socioeconomic background as well. This way we're also incorporating the cultural differences and making sure we are welcoming student diversity. So when you're learning about the kid, you're able to see which way they best learn. So you get their learning strategies as well as their ethnic and cultural background. So you can incorporate all of it at the same time. So my 4th tip would be to stay organized. I saw in both settings that the main thing is each student is an individual and they are all different and they do all come from different cultural backgrounds. They learn differently. They are also different. So it's hard to keep up with every student if you don't have it down on paper or logged in a computer somewhere. So I just said record background information for each client. Um, and this allows you to keep each individual straight. And it also provides you a way to reference their file or whatever. So you are prepared for teaching them or conducting a therapy session. I included this picture because it just shows like it'll help you. So identify the key information, make a note of it, and then you're able to go back and review it. So to conclude, walking away from this class and my experiences, I'll utilize what I have acquired um, as both knowledge in educational psychology as well as the hands-on observation hours and the stuff I learned on scene um, in the learning environment. So 3 things I would take with me is look at each student as an individual. I think it's really easy to generalize students and sort of use the same methods and way of educating. But I think it's important to get to know each individual with all the different components that come with them, whether it be learning strategies, their home life, their cultural background, whatever it may be. I think it's just important to pay attention to that so you can best educate them with what they need in mind. The second one would be to continue to learn and grow as an educator while I'm educating. So we're in school and we're learning all we can now, but I think there's always room to improve. There's always things you can brush up on, whether it be learning more about your student or client's culture or more theories that help you look into the way students learn, whatever it may be. I think it's important to continue to research, continue to study, just to be the best for the person you're providing education for. The third is to make learning fun. So we have to remember that these are children most of the time, and we have to make it engaging and make them want to do it. So if it's fun, it'll make our jobs a lot easier, and it gives the children a good experience and a good outlook on learning as a whole. Thank you so much for watching.